Why, hello out there, and welcome to Two Dudes on the Radio. My name is Edward Boyce.
And I'm Matt Piak.
Wait a second, you're not Shaner.
I'm not Shaner.
Oh, well, that's a surprise. Well, guess what, everyone? Shaner does not have the Rona, but he's quarantined. So we had to find a replacement, and we have the NeoprenePlayMatt coming in and replacing Shaner for the day. You want to introduce yourself, Matt?
Yeah. So, as Eddie introduced me, I go by the NeoprenePlayMatt. It's my YouTube channel, all about board games, and beyond that, I work here at the university as the director of housing, a resident director, assistant women's basketball coach. I've been an adjunct professor in the religion department, so kind of all over the place, but really happy to be here tonight.
Mm-hmm. I had to step up Shaner because Shaner's a biblical ministry study major. Was it a master's in ministry? Is that what you have?
Master's in religion.
Religion, okay.
Yep.
Had to take it a step up there. So our show's going to be a bit different today, but don't worry, we have mostly the same elements with some new segments, or segments that have been altered. So before we continue, make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook to keep up with news and just be participatory with the channel and radio show. And look out for this episode that will go up on YouTube tomorrow, probably around 11. So keep in mind with that. So without further ado, we're going to get into our first segment, questions, or answer your questions. So this first one, no one gave me questions this week, so I had to come up with a few on my own. I think I got some spicy ones. So if you ever have questions that you want answered, make sure to hit us up, on Instagram, Facebook, or comment on the YouTube videos. So, first question, Matt. Mm-hmm. This is a heavy one.
Oh, heavy. I like heavy.
Yes, start off the show strong. So, do you think that the media has affected adults how adults feared video games would affect children?
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I can see where you're going with that.
To clarify before you continue, I don't know, I mean, I'm sure most adults know this, but, adults fear, violence would get to children and make them, very violent people and, craving, that, what's the word I'm looking for? Type of spectacle, I guess the word, that's not the correct word I'm looking for, but that's what we're going to go for. So has media done that to adults?
Yeah, so I think it becomes a very interesting question when you dive into this idea behind violence in video games, right? Is it that the violent video games are making people violent, or is it that violent people are drawn to video games? Mm-hmm. I think as human beings, we are drawn to drama. Sensationalism draws us in. Clickbait draws us in. There's a reason it's called clickbait, because it makes you want to click the item. Mm-hmm. And so, is the media capitalizing on this urge that we have to be caught up in the drama? I would say absolutely.
Yeah, I read, there was a class I took, it was communication, what was it? It was communication something, I forgot what it was, but it's basically theory, that was it, communication theory. And it's about this book about different theories in communication. And part of it was how people are just naturally drawn to that. I forget the reason he gave, but there were studies showing people were more wanted to watch that stuff more because they were just interested. It was over the top, and you want to see those over the top things, not just the mundane. The cat got stuck in the tree, and the fire department had to come save it, kind of stuff. So yeah, it's interesting how they kind of that flip flop of adults' lives going to happen to their children, but it's actually happened to media. And is this I guess the question would be has this thing always been this way, or has it been a more recent development that this has happened, I guess? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. From my end, I would say it's definitely something that's more recent. Reason being is that typically in publications, the process of getting information and news to people, most people would subscribe to a newspaper, pay for a newspaper to be dropped off at their house. And so newspapers were really just about putting out the news because they knew they had all these subscriptions and they could sell ad space and they would get the people's views. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, nobody pays for imprint news. I shouldn't say nobody. Newspapers still exist, but for the most part, there's been a huge decline. And so what's happening is media companies are trying to figure out how to get audiences' attention. The more
Correct,
attention
yeah.
they have, the more viewers they have, the more ad revenue they can generate. And they're for-profit businesses. They're trying to survive. Really, when newspapers kind of went out the window, a lot of these companies were scrambling to figure out what they were going to do. And so the internet has made a place where when you come out with clickbait, when you drive all the attention to your site saying inflammatory things, you're actually able to sell more ad space, more, and generate more revenue off of it, because you can say, oh, I have 10,000 viewers that will read this page for 5 minutes. That's going to generate a lot more ad revenue than something that gets 100 viewers that's, viewed for 2 minutes, right? And so now there's this idea that we have to be inflammatory to generate the revenue we need to succeed as a company.
And to go back to the point you made about like clickbait and how that has played a role, like all clickbait, I mean, clickbait does a few different things, but generally clickbait, what it does is it creates a curiosity gap, which is what you need to get people to click on your article, even read it. So in that sense, it's not a bad thing. Like, just you want that curiosity gap and create that. But when it's like for like content that isn't like all that either good for you to consume, or if it's just like very lackluster and like, or it doesn't promise what the actual art, or what it doesn't promise what it says. So like it might say one thing, but then the article's about something completely different. So yeah, media's in a very interesting place at this point.
I bet there's a lot of middle school teachers that are kicking themselves for teaching all the children that are now making different media content for having strong attention grabbers, right? Clickbait, that's essentially what it is. It's a super strong attention grabber. Yeah. And the problem with most clickbait is that it doesn't live up to the hype of the title. That's why people get frustrated with it, mad with it.
Yes.
If it was, and I think that's what you were saying too, so if it's not really clickbait, if it's an accurate representation of what the article is. And so that's also where it ties in kind of that inflammatory idea, right? Like, are we bolstering the content to make it something enticing?
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't help again with the trust in media, but that's a whole different topic, is trust in media. So what was I going to make? There was another point I was going to make. So to kind of get back to our original topic with media affecting adults, how adults fear video games would affect children. Do you I guess the question would be like, don't you think that adults should have like adapted and like realized that the media is like this? Because like they're criticizing children of like the same thing that they're guilty of. You know what I mean? So like, don't you think that? Because for me, I think like I don't watch a whole lot of news, and if I see something that's clickbaity or I know it's going to be either gruesome or there's just not the point, then I won't see it. I mean, sometimes I fall into the trap, but like overall, I've trained myself not to try and fall for those traps. So why hasn't the rest of America not done that?
Yeah, so I think the main difference is the amount of agency perceived to be present when choosing to play a violent video game, right? It's a decision. I come home and I decide I'm going to sit here and I am going to spend my free time doing this thing. Okay. When you're talking about news and media, it's everywhere. It's on your social media. It's on the news. It's on television. It's on commercials. It's everywhere. You're constantly being bombarded with it. So there's less agency in the act of doing it. You are more of a witness or somebody standing by. Whereas somebody that's venturing out, they're making a decision. Most people would say, "Oh, I don't click on these. I don't go seeking out this type of content or this type of sensationalist media. It kind of happens upon me based on what other people are sharing and that sort of thing."
Does it though? Because I mean, my generation specifically, we're like very non-politically active. I mean, this is a very general statement. I know some of my generation is, but generally, we're not very politically active, and more older generations are. So, because social media is very select, and this is not factoring in ads. Like, ads come whether you want it or not. But even in ads, like, ads are tailored to what your interests are. But anyways, like, we're going to follow what we want. And if we don't want to follow its politics, then we're not going to see that on our feed, as opposed to like the older generations where they'll just turn on the TV and they'll just like whatever station they go on Fox or CNN whatever, and they'll just watch whatever's playing. They'll just watch the hourly show or whatever it is. So
yeah, I guess while in some sense that's true, I think I would disagree with you about your generation being not politically active, but I would say you guys aren't active in the two-party sense, but I think there are things that are definitely politically motivated that you push toward. But before going down that rabbit trail, I think there is a difference, though, and I think the same thing happens to everybody, whether it's you're sitting on the TV and you just start zoning into whatever is on TV, or you're sitting and you have your phone and you get into that scroll mix, right? Yeah. And it might not be that you're looking at material that is explicitly political, but there are certain ideas and worldviews that are being conveyed in the information that you are scrolling through. I see it every day. People are reposting Twitter posts and
that's true.
Instagram feeds and things like that, where there's very, very specific, pointed ideas that somebody is trying to say, hey, I agree with this and I'm endorsing this. Let me hit that like button. And so I think it's still this passive, even though you are making the choice to like it and things like that, it's a very passive way of getting information. Whereas playing video games, violent video games, it still seems like a more active decision to go out and spend your money and spend your free time doing that. I mean, to buy a console, you're talking $300-400. To buy the game, it's another $60. Like, nobody's paying that for their media content. No. It's just something that they're passively scrolling through or getting caught up in.
Yes. Okay. No, that is a fair one. I didn't think about like reposts and other people's interests and stuff, I guess. Yeah, I guess. Okay. All right, so we'll move on from that. We spent most of the time, so we have a little shorter question that's easier. Do you eat Oreos, Matt? Question, do you, rephrase it, do you like Oreos?
Yeah.
Okay. What, in your opinion, is the best Oreo?
Oh, it's all about context, right? So if I'm
Context? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if I am just sitting and I am eating just Oreos, maybe dipping them in milk, maybe doing just even the little twist, eating the cream, eating the cookie, that type of thing. I like the golden Oreos. That's my favorite. That's like the vanilla cookie with the vanilla cream in it. But if I'm having anything with ice cream, I gotta go classic on it. Or even double stuff. Double stuff works for me. How about you?
Golden Oreos are underrated. They're really good for what they are, and I don't think they get enough love. I mean, I'm a double stuffed Oreo guy. It's either double stuffed or like the golden for me. Okay. Like, I'm not really like the other flavors or the special limited American. Or did you see they came out with like a Supreme Oreo?
I missed that. What is that? What is that?
No,
Tell me what that
you know
is.
The Supreme brand is?
Oh,
the brand Supreme.
Like, so they're like $400 a cookie.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so they did. It was like a red cookie. It's the funniest thing. But they had that. But I'm just a pretty classic Oreo fan. But I usually go double stuffed. That's my go-to.
Is it bad that when you said Supreme, I was thinking of like a Supreme pizza?
No.
So I was like, man, a lot of vegetables on my Oreo. That sounds really strange.
Yeah. Well, that's another generation thing because like Supreme's like my generation. Yours is Supreme, but no, that's not bad. It's Supreme Pizza Oreo. It's got all the flavors: chocolate, lemon, vanilla. That'd be disgusting. Have you ever done that? My brother, shout out to Addison. He used to take Oreos and then like he'd take all the icing out of like 5 or 6 and then put it all in one Oreo and then make this huge stack.
The quintuple stuffed.
I don't think I've had the quintuple. I've had the double, the mega, and then
quintuple's 5. So I was,
Oh! I see. Okay. I was like, that's an Oreo? I didn't know they came out with that.
No, they definitely did not. But
have you tried the mega one? The mega stuffed one?
I have not.
Okay.
Do you want to know a fun fact?
Sure.
Now,
I like fun facts.
Please fact check me because this is what I've heard, and this has been from a line of individuals. So you never know.
I got Google in front of me.
Sometimes you get misinformation, especially these days. But from my understanding, a double stuffed Oreo and a regular Oreo have the same amount of cream in them.
No.
But hold on. But there's a different way they process the cream and they aerate it so it's fluffier, so it actually comes out thicker than like the normal cream does, which also lends to its taste being slightly different. I see.
I'm typing away. I'm going to see it has same amount of cream as regular Oreo.
Uh-oh.
Where'd you hear this from?
Maybe it's an old wives' tale, but I've heard this since I was like in middle school. Because people were not excited to be getting ripped off on their amount of cream.
I mean, yeah. Okay. For whatever reason, my computer got kicked off the student Wi-Fi here at the university, so we'll have to go on without. Unfortunately, that's the third time it's happened to me today. I don't know what's up with that.
Well, you can participate in the show at home.
Yeah,
Fact check me.
Yeah,
let us know in the comments if this is an old wives' tale or something that's legit.
You know, that one surprised me because they do that with like lattes and like mochas. Do you know how that process works? Of like how they make that, like lattes, mochas, and cappuccinos and all that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
they pretty much like put like hot air in it to like make the milk hot, but then also it helps separate the enzymes and proteins in the milk and pretty much expand it. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty much the same milk, but it's expanded. So I can see that being real.
Yeah, it's a texture thing though from a coffee perspective. They're not trying to cut you on your money, but the froth adds a different texture and flavor to the brew.
Yeah, you're right. I should have expounded on that. But yes, so before we move on to our next segment, I want to shout out to the student of the week. It's Jeb Brady.
Woo! Yeah, Jeb.
He's a really nice mustache. It's getting really long.
Well, his whole beard, isn't it?
Beard. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the mustache that he waxes, and he's got like a nice curl to it. I mean, probably the best beard on campus.
Probably.
It's up there.
Yeah, it's up there. It's pretty long. I need to grow out my beard at some point. Remember, like, freshman year?
You look like Wolverine, man.
I want to try that out. I mean, I'm gonna style it a bit more, but like once I get out of sheets and like I can actually have a beard, it's coming back. So, anyways, next segment is a hole in the wall, where I look up a business that you wouldn't normally find and dissect it. So, Matt, how do you feel about puzzles?
I like puzzles. I'm a fan.
How do you feel about like object puzzles? So not like Jigsaw, but like where you have to like take the rings apart, or like you have to open it up by like doing these bunch of things. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. You can find them in like Barnes and Noble near the games section. They have a bunch of different like pieces of iron that are like bent in weird ways, and there's like ways to detach them. Yeah.
How do you feel about puzzles in a book?
So like a
puzzle book. The book is the puzzle.
The book is the puzzle, kind of like an escape room in a book,
sort of, yeah.
Like a Journal 29 type of thing.
I don't think I've read Journal 29. I've heard the name, but I've never like read it. Anyways,
sorry.
No, it's fine. So, horrible segue, but segue into Codex Salenda. I think I'm saying that right. It is literally a mechanical book of secrets. So it is the base product is this is mostly to do like company, but this company only does like one product and variations of the product. So it's going to be mainly about this product, Codex Salenda. It is the base product is like a 5-page book, okay? And each page is like a puzzle that you have to complete in order. I don't know if you have to complete in order to get to the next page, or if you just complete it and then you can move on and switch and stuff. I don't know exactly how it works, but anyways, and then they're like, it's a wooden book. It's not like pages. It's a wood book.
I mean, aren't all books wooden?
Yes, Matt. Yes, they are. Are you happy? Are you proud about that?
I am. I'm super proud about that. But
okay, this is an actual wooden book that has not been turned into paper.
Okay.
So the company is called Arcane Concepts Incorporated, and they're based in Hudson, Wisconsin. All right.
Okay.
So the founder of the company, his name's Brady. You can go look this up on the internet. The whole story's there, but I'm going to summarize. So in 2016, Brady developed this book for a senior college project, all right?
Okay.
And then he took this, because he was really proud of it, and he posted his creation on Imgur, which I've heard of Imgur like once other. It's pretty much the happy filter for social media. Think of it, it's kind of like if you want memes, bam, you can just filter out all the memes on Instagram, or like GIFs or whatever. So I don't know why he decided to post it there. This is 2016 Facebook exists, but disapproval aside, he posted it there and it went viral. So it went so viral that he decided to get a few friends together and make a company to make these. And he posted a Kickstarter, and they got fully funded, and it's kind of blown up from there. So they held actually their second Kickstarter earlier this year. It ended like a couple months ago, so they're only accepting pre-orders right now. So you can put your money down, pre-order it, and then once they get around to making the next batch, they'll do another Kickstarter, and then they'll start producing. But these things take a while to make. They said that it approximately takes like 9 to 12 months after a Kickstarter to make these things. Yeah. I mean, they're pretty thick. I don't know if you have it in front of you or not, but these are really thick books. They're at least a foot long. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration. 6 inches.
Okay.
6 inches. They're pretty thick boys. So, anyways, this book is like kind of taken off, and it's gotten some celebrity views. So like Chris Ramsey, he's like a famous magician. You watch Chris Ramsey?
I know who he is.
Yeah,
but yeah.
He's pretty cool. I watch his stuff on Facebook. Apparently, it featured an NCIS New Orleans, not the original NCIS, the New Orleans one, which I didn't even know they had a New Orleans version.
They have one for like every city,
yeah,
like every major city.
There's like Miami. I know there's Los Angeles, New Orleans. Because why not?
Because why not? There's probably a New York. There's probably a Chicago. No, I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. I'm just throwing large cities out there. There's a Memphis, maybe. I'm kidding.
That's like really like obscure. Anyways,
that'd be obscure. Yep.
And then Neil Patrick Harris apparently like got the book off Kickstarter. So that's kind of like the clout behind this project. So I'm not gonna spoil the puzzles because that's kind of it's hard to explain them. Because they're pretty complex. Like the front page one, it looks like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like a so you know in Star Wars and the Death Star how like the doors work. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that in the center, and they're closed, and you have to try open it. That's front page one. And there's another one where there's like, excuse me, a piece of wood on top of what looks like a maze underneath, and I'm assuming you have to try and get that piece of wood somehow through the maze and pull it up. I'm assuming. I don't know. It's pretty complicated. I would suggest looking it up.
Yeah, it sounds really cool.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of different products, like deviations from this. All right. So you can get this Codex Slenda in accent colors of red, yellow, green, black, and blue. There's also a 7-page version of this, so like 2 extra puzzles for you.
Yeah.
And the rest are pretty much like artistic deviations of it. So there's like the storybook, they call it, where you can get like a 5-page or 7-page codex with a Norse, Egyptian, Mayan, Da Vinci, or Necronomicon like art style about it.
Necronomicon? Isn't that the book from Overcooked, that game on the Switch? No,
that's a thing. I have no idea. I don't follow Switch games.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It might be.
I just heard about it like last week from my boy Gordon over in Martin Hall. But apparently, there's a guy that's raising food from the dead, which is like necro is like dead and nom like nom nom nom. So Necronomicon, he's raising the unbred. Anywho,
oh my goodness.
Sorry.
Violence in video games. Anyways.
Full circle.
Yeah. And then there's like another theme that's Archaic Tale, which is like the storybook themes, but with like metallic leaf and decorations on it. And then you can get these books in unassembled versions. So you could put them together and then solve them through what you know through putting them together. And then there's what they call the Minimus and the Maximus versions, which are pretty much smaller weight. They don't have any puzzle. You just kind of have it for like a centerpiece. Yeah. So the books, like I said, they're kind of wood, but kind of think like they kind of look like what's the not birch wood. What do you put like planes together with to make like what type
like
of wood?
MDF?
No. It's like a type of wood. What's it called? Like you use it to build like makeshift planes because it's a really light wood. It's easily breakable, but it's like a light wood.
Balsa?
Balsa, that's it. It looks like, I don't know if it's, I'm sure it's not balsa wood because that'd be pretty risky. But it looks like balsa wood, and then like it's carved with like lasers.
It's probably MDF, I bet.
It
I haven't seen it, but yeah, like, does it look kind of like? Have you ever seen like Broken Tokens inserts for board games, like their custom inserts they make?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it looks a lot like that. It looks a lot like that.
Yeah, that's MDF. It's actually usually it's made out of birch. So you were right in your first assessment.
Whew. And intentionally right. Yeah. So. Yeah, that's pretty much the project, and just to like. I know I kind of went behind the cloud on this, but just to kind of get an idea of like what the numbers recently are, it seems like they switched from like Kickstarter to CrowdOx. Which I don't know why they made that switch, but that's like I know you know about it because the board gaming.
Sure, there's
kind of done that split.
There's tons of crowdfunding platforms that are starting to emerge. So, not to go way off into a rabbit trail, but just lightly. Essentially. Kickstarter, if you guys are unfamiliar with crowdfunding platforms, what they do is to raise money for your product. You put your product on there, you say, I have to hit this goal. If I hit this goal, then I'll be able to make this product. Everybody that backs the product, depending on how much money they put toward it, will be rewarded with whatever like pledge level they put in. So, generally speaking, Kickstarter would offer this service, and what ended up becoming difficult was if you had multiple different types of things you wanted to offer customers, or if you wanted to offer customers past products that your current Kickstarter wasn't for, the company that was doing the Kickstarter would then have to hire what's called a pledge manager. Essentially, it's a third-party company that comes in on the back end and says, okay, here, all of your clients can now order and do these different things for like while they're managing their pledge level, right? While they're saying these are the things I want from you based on how much money I gave you, and here's more money for these past products you had, right? And so there's a lot of these platforms that were just pledge managers, like CrowdOx, this third party that would come in at the end, that are saying, well, we don't really need to be just a pledge manager anymore. Why don't we just do all the crowdfunding as well? That way people don't have to go from Kickstarter then to a third party. They can do it all in one space. And so probably by doing it on CrowdOx, the reason they're doing that is so that they don't have to hire and have an additional cost for a pledge manager. It's all housed in one place.
That makes sense. Anyway, so reason why we went into that. So I'm pretty sure these numbers are like from like the second Kickstarter, and then like they've been added on from like the pre-orders that have been happening. So currently, from this Kickstarter started back in March of this year. Okay, so 2,199 backers. I checked these numbers yesterday, so they might be a bit changed today, but over $862,000 in pledges. So not even like total amount for paid for it, just pledges. And apparently it's 62% over the amount that they needed to produce everything. So these guys they're raking in the dough with this product, which is crazy. For like one product with some variations. But it looks pretty cool. I would definitely recommend looking it up.
Yeah, and for them it's a great thing too, because the more you increase your sales, the more you're going to decrease the manufacturing cost. You create larger margins, because if you go to a company and say, hey, I want 1,000 of these, or you say, hey, I want 2,000, if you're making 2,000 of the same product, they're going to charge you less to make it. So the more sales they get, the better, because they're going to be able to put a bigger order into the manufacturer.
Okay. All right, so that's all we have for that segment. For our next segment is the Bible, Spark Notes edition. And that's where Matt comes in and uses his big noggin in masters in religion.
Sure. Let's not get too carried away here. But yeah, so I know Jake Shaner. He always comes in and he drives the conversation to something that's a little bit more obscure, a lesson less known, maybe in Scripture, things like that. And so, rather than try and fill his shoes, which I know I probably couldn't do, I wanted to go maybe a little bit of a different direction and take a popular passage and offer kind of, I don't want to use the word obscure as far as interpretation goes, because obscurity sometimes, like, there's a lack of trust in a lot of obscurity.
Right.
Like if something's too obscure, usually it's dismissed because it doesn't seem like it fits, right?
It seemed like when you said it's more like excuse me, it's like a more obscure comparison into something that normally but most people wouldn't look into or think of.
Right. And so where we're going to start actually is Genesis 1. I know, super exciting, right? At the beginning. And now you might be thinking, oh no, he's going to get down to evolution or the historicity of the text here. But no, we're going to look at something a little bit different. I'm actually going to be talking a little bit about the interpretation of water. Now, in a lot of texts, water is demonstrated as something that's restorative, that has cleansing properties or even sanitizing properties, which is true. Like that's a very common way to use water as both a metaphor or as a discussion point, right? As something that cleanses. But something we miss out on a lot of times in our current 21st century context is that water could also be viewed as total chaos. Think about back in the day when you had a little itty bitty boat and you'd go out on the sea to go fishing to provide for your family, and then you're caught in a storm, right? Crashing waves. Mm-hmm. You have no control. You're literally just all in your boat, kind of freaking out, all tense, like, I hope I make it home. I hope I don't die, right? And that's because it's total chaos. It doesn't seem like you have any control over the situation.
Mm-hmm. You know what that reminds me? Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah,
little rabbit trail. So, like, do you ever watch the VeggieTales Jonah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just you saying all this just reminded me of like the waves and like that boat and everyone's freaking out. Sorry, continue. It just reminded me of that.
Oh, for sure. I appreciate the visualization you added there. And so there's this idea that there's this all-consuming chaos that is the sea, that is the ocean, that is these large bodies of water. And so when thinking about that and then looking back at this Genesis text, you start getting some very interesting ideas conveyed. So I'm just going to hop right into the text here.
Go for it.
We're starting at Genesis 1:1.
What version are you using?
I'm using the NIV.
Okay.
I hope that's
that's
cool.
fine. I just like to ask.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So this says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. So from the very beginning, we have God above the chaos. Not in the chaos or mixed in, but above it. He's hovering above it, right? And God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water. So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day. So once again, God is showing control over the water, over the chaos. He is bringing in order to something that is chaotic, right? Which is showing signs of God's ability to be in control. It continues, and God said, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear. And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. So now you have this illustration where God is separating the water, the uncontrollable force, the complete chaos, and he's saying, no, you go over here, you go over there. Now we have land, right? This is the immovable force of chaos, the thing that nobody has control over, the thing that strikes fear into the individual. And God is just like, no, like chaos can be controlled by me. I'm in control here, and I'm going to push the chaos aside. Now, when you start taking this and you look at this this explanation, this understanding of water as chaos, it starts lending itself to other stories as well. And sure, we could get into a big debate as to whether or not it was the original author's intention to mean this. And ultimately, I don't know if we're going to be able to come to a conclusion on that. But what we can conclude is that the metaphor here is something that should be looked at as something positive and something uplifting, right? So to begin with, we look at the story of Noah, right? And what happens in Noah, Eddie?
Well, there's kind of this huge flood, and Noah saves all these animals on a boat, and everyone dies because of the flood.
Correct, right? Noah's instructed to build an ark. God says, this flood is coming. Essentially, people have become unruly and have gotten out of hand, and God's going to essentially allow for these waters to come crashing in. And so, if we're going to adopt this idea that the water is a symbol of chaos, and that the people are acting in chaos, right? God's not just like, I'm going to flood the place because I feel like it. He's talking about how evil these people have become. Right. He's allowing their own chaos to consume them. This isn't an act of God trying to, what's the word? Make humans extinct, right? He's not just trying to wipe everything out, but he's allowing for their own chaos, their own sinfulness to consume them. In this story, and he sees Moses as somebody that isn't taking part in that chaos. That is, and he provides him the means to stay above the chaos while he allows the chaos to consume the people. And then we can even move ahead. Yep, we're jumping all over Scripture today. All over the place, because
we do have like 20 minutes left. So we do have another segment. So
yeah, absolutely. We're going to keep things fresh. But we look at Moses, right? And Moses and the Pharaoh are going back and forth. Pharaoh's heart continues to be hardened, and he continues to say, no, I'm not going to let your people go, right? And so the climax of this whole interaction is that they're leaving Egypt, and they're crossing the sea, right?
Right.
And what ends up happening is Moses calls to God, raises his staff, and the waters separate, right? Once again, God very easily showing control over the chaos. This is a crazy situation, a very chaotic situation. You got Pharaoh running you down, and after he said you guys could go, and all of this. And then, as they pass through, as they exit, as they cross, what does God do? Once again, whoosh, exactly. He allows the chaos to consume Pharaoh and the Egyptians, right? And so once again we see this illustration of the chaos coming over the top and really causing the destruction, right? And then finally, you got to end on this climax. We got to fast forward to the New Testament. Like I said, we're jumping
just
all
like
around.
A few thousand years. Nothing extreme.
Well, I'm not going to go too long on this, but there are clear themes throughout the Bible that start in the beginning that go toward the end.
Right.
And a lot of times people want to say that was the Old Testament, and this is the New Testament, or things like that. But I think they're definitely connected thematically, and so I think it is important to have a tie from both. And so when we look at Jesus, right? Jesus walks on water. Everybody, non-Christians, everybody knows that story. Everybody, there's very irreverent people that make jokes about it all the time too, like comedians and things. But in that scene, what a lot of times people forget is Peter also walked on water. Jesus actually enabled Peter to come out on the water and be above the chaos, right? And as soon as Peter had doubt, he fell in, which I think is almost the narrative. Once again, when we look at Peter, we gotta almost see the church in that, right? Peter is rock. The church's foundation was built on rock. Like Peter is kind of the foundation of the church, and so you can think of the church as all of God's people. And so here, walking on top of the chaos, they're doing good. They have doubt. They fall in, and then Jesus reaches his hand out, and he pulls Peter back up on top of the chaos. And yes, they get back on the boat and things of that nature. But there's this deliverance from chaos. There's this idea that God is above chaos. He demonstrates that physically by walking on the water, and then he allows his people to do so as well. And I think that's just an incredibly strong point. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like in like I don't want to say like mainstream culture in general, I think that water is kind of viewed as a control type thing. So, like for instances, like Avatar: The Last Airbender,
Sure.
like water benders. They're known for being flexible and being in control of a fight, and using their flexibility to gain control and take over pretty much. Earth does this too, but water is more flexible in this. And then in like something like Magic Gathering, we'll do that. Blue decks, which are symbolized as like water, are literally called control decks.
Usually,
Usually, yeah. That's like the whole idea. So it's interesting how I guess that idea's kind of shifted as time has gone on.
Well, for sure.
Well, then we're not so afraid of the ocean because like we can fly.
Yeah, or we take a giant cruise liner that like you could have crazy waves hitting that thing and the thing barely moves, right? Like technology's kind of surpassed the need for or the fear that water can create. I'm sure small fishermen in small towns in like third world countries are still very afraid of the water, and they definitely have reason to be scared of the water in that situation. I don't want to be on a dinghy in the middle of the ocean, right?
No.
And so, yeah, it is interesting how interpretations of things change. And I think it's also important to know that with this interpretation, and this is something you can find, this idea that water is chaos is something that you can find in like older Hebrew tradition and whatnot. But that said, you can also find examples of water being restorative and healing. And so it's kind of the idea of the sea and the ocean versus like the idea of here's a glass of water, right?
Yeah, right. Okay, well, thanks, Matt, for that. That was very insightful. I've never heard of that until you brought it up. I'm like, you're right, actually. It started coming together. No, that was really neat. Thank you. So, before we continue on to our new segment, because we're not doing B movies this time around, because I can't move on without Shaner. We want to shout out to our possible sponsor. Possible sponsor for the day is Mojang. If you don't know who Mojang is, they are the company that essentially created Minecraft, or kind of came up around Minecraft. So Mojang, if you're listening, if you sponsor us, I will finally say completely positive things about your game. Not that I hate Minecraft. You've played Minecraft, I'm assuming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Minecraft is I feel like it's one of the last like true video games, if that makes any sense.
That is a bold statement.
No. I don't. I know it's a very bold statement, and it sounds very like this is this, but I don't mean it in that sense. Like there's other games like that, but I feel like Minecraft. A lot of games, I feel, and there's some research that's been done on this. I don't want to go in too deep. I've gone way too deep. I shouldn't have said this, but Minecraft is a very hard game if you want it to be. Or it's very easy if you want it to be. It depends on how you want to play, and that's why it's so fun. But if you try and like complete everything, it's a pretty decently hard game.
Sure.
And you can make it easier for yourself, and as time goes on, the games become easier. But I don't know. It's from 2011. Stayed all this way. There's more into it, but I won't go that far. And I might change my mind in like 2 years. But yeah, Mojang. Also, I don't like it because I can't beat it. But that's a whole different story. But yeah, I'll say nice things about your game from now on. I won't crap on the Ender Dragon any longer. Sorry, long rant. Next segment is I didn't actually name this at all. It's about board games because we have the NeoprenePlayMatt on the show, so we can't go without talking about board games. So do you want to intro to our segment?
So initially when we were talking, Eddie brought up the fact that usually this segment B films are talked about.
Yes.
And so...
we love B films.
Yeah, B films are great. And just given... we didn't want to replace Shaner. That's his groundwork here with you, of course. And so...
are you into B movies?
I am into B movies. But,
okay.
But...
we could have done it then.
potentially could have done it, but I figured, as I was talking with Eddie and I play a lot of board games together.
We do.
I obviously have a vested interest in board games because I have a YouTube channel, the NeoprenePlayMatt.
You should see this guy's shelves. He has like 3 shelves worth of board games. They're not small shelves. Like, they go almost all the way to the ceiling. It's crazy.
I like board games. That's true. That's true. But, and so what we wanted to do was, it's not finding the B films of board games, but it's essentially finding some like really unique, weird themes or weird mechanics in a game.
Mechanics,
that made it super unique. And so essentially, we'll just be doing a bit of an introduction and why we think the game is unique and kind of dialogue from there.
Yes. So we have 5 games we want to present to you. Do you have any specific order that you put them in?
I didn't put them in any specific order. I just kind of put them up here as how I was feeling as far as talking about them. Kind of just the different ebb and flow, I guess. So there's no like ranking order here.
Okay. Well, with the list, what's on my board then? So we're going to start with why first, which it's a question mark at the end. So it's supposed to be a question. Why first?
Exactly.
So this game, I'll let Matt go into more detail, but this game is basically, the whole premise of it is you want to get second place for the entire game. And there's ways that you have cards in your hand, and you can, it's like -4 and +5, and you get like, how many cards in your hand? It's like,
it's 5, I think. So essentially, you're playing these cards out, and you're going to be moving back and forth on a track, and you're setting other people up for failure or for success. But really what makes this game unique is how it challenges the narrative of board games or of competition in general, right? It's called Why First, and that's why I thought it'd be funny if we did it first. But
why first?
Exactly. Why first? And so it's challenging that narrative of why do we always make the winner the person that's in first place? And so in this game, not only are you trying to get in second place is the only place that you score. But that can be problematic because at the end of the game, because you play 5 rounds and you collect scores each round,
right?
You then look at the scores that everybody has, and whoever's in second place with those scores is the winner. So not only do you want to get in second place, but you want to get in second place the second most times, or at least for the second most value.
So if you get second place in each of the tracks, you would lose because you would be first place, and you wouldn't win the entire thing, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so if you won every single round by being in second place, everyone else would have 0 points, and they would all be in second place, so they would all share the victory, and you would be the only loser.
That's like a mind blow. So you want second place, but then you don't want all the time because you want to get second place.
Right, because then otherwise you'll be in first place, and the whole point is to get into second place.
All right, we're going to move on because we're only got 10 minutes left. So this next game, you're going to correct me. Petrichor? Is that correct?
Yeah, Petrichor.
So this game is all about, you're a cloud, and you want to spread yourself out and rain on the crops and make them grow. However, there's other clouds, aka the other players, that want to do the same thing. And so this game is area control.
Yeah. So essentially, you're causing rain. You're trying to make the weather something that's favorable for the crops, and you want to do it in a better way than all of your opponents, so that at the end of the game, you are the most valuable cloud.
Most valuable cloud.
Most valuable cloud. And I think this is a really interesting way to look at a game, right? Like, we usually think of area control as, I'm going to send my army here to do this. But in this game, you're like, no, I'm going to cause the most prosperity to happen in these regions. And so I'm valuable not because of the destruction I bring, but because of the creation or the growth that is caused by my presence. And I just think that's an interesting flip on the narrative.
Yeah, it's like an opposite theme of like risk. It's like instead of taking over the world, you're just trying to spread the love, and give out the best love.
Yeah, grow better crops,
How many players is this? Actually, let's talk about players. How much was Why First?
So why first is I believe it is 2 to 6, but I would never play it with 2 players.
Okay.
It's definitely 3 or more.
That makes sense. All right, what about Petrichor?
So Petrichor can be played 1 to 4 players. So it does have a solo variant. So if you are somebody at home that doesn't necessarily have a game group or something, and you were looking for a puzzly type of game to play in the evenings, Petrichor would definitely be a great one.
Okay. So our next one is called Fog of Love. I think this is the one I want to try out most on this list. I haven't played any of these except for our last one, so just keep that in mind. Matt is the expert. Fog of Love is basically you building a relationship and then deciding whether you want to dump them or not. Is that correct?
Yeah, kind of. Essentially, think of it as the relation part of the game Sims, right, on the computer, right? So you're gonna be having relationships with individuals, and you are going to either progress or you're going to dump that person, that type of thing. And so in this game, you are making choices that are lending itself to the relationship and how that relationship grows. And ultimately, you want to have a successful relationship if possible. And so it's really interesting because you can role play. If you really want to get into something interesting, this could be a game you play husband and wife, and maybe the husband plays the role of the wife, and the
yeah.
and vice versa. Really kind of just challenge the narrative and see what comes out of it.
This is a 2-player game, by the way, so it's not like 4 for each. It's strictly 2 players. So next one is Palm Trees. I think this is the most mechanically unique one out of all of them.
Oh, for sure. Now, to talk about Palm Trees, we got to start with what comes in the box. So the cards are they're like a plastic veneer almost, so they're really bendy and flexible. That's going to be really important because all of the cards are coconuts and palm branches, and your hand/arm is the palm tree. So you are going to be told you have to hold this card with this many fingers in these places on this part of the card. Sometimes you have to hold it on the corners of the card, or you have to pinch it between 2 fingers. And you're actually adding cards to your opponent's hand. So you're not picking the ones that make the most sense to go in your hand, but you're picking the ones that are the worst for the other person, and they have to figure out how to make it work.
So when Matt says your hand's the palm tree, he literally means the palm tree because they have sleeves that you put over your arm that make it look like your arm is a palm tree.
Yeah, it almost looks like one of those tattoo sleeves.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen people that wear for Halloween, those fake tattoo sleeves, it's like that, but it looks like a palm tree.
Yeah.
You put that over your arm, and then you have your elbow on the table, and your hand is what's going to hold everything together, the coconuts and the palm branches and all of that.
It's almost like, from what you described, it's like Hand Twister.
Yeah, exactly like Hand Twister.
Okay. All right, so the last one, it's called Hit Z Road. This is a zombie apocalypse game. But you're not trying to kill zombies. Well, I mean, you are killing zombies, but that's not the main idea. You're just trying to survive. And you're this family going through, or at least you think you're going through, this whole journey. But in reality, it is actually a game that was built by the son, right?
The kid, Martin Wallace.
The kid.
Yeah.
The kid in this fictional story built this board game along their adventure. So the game is actually just like basically a journal of their adventure. You're just kind of playing through it.
Yeah.
And so all the pieces look like things you'd find in an apocalypse. So like broken pieces of metal or paper or like bottle caps, stuff like that.
Yeah, my favorite part about it is all of the card backs are different, and every single one is smudged differently with dirt because they're supposed to be decks that he found in a diner and drew on, essentially. So it's the reason it's such an interesting game and has such an appeal thematically is that the actual product you get is supposed to be the product that he made after he went through kind of this zombie apocalypse escape to California mission with his family.
Oh, that's right. You're trying to get the East Coast to the West Coast, right?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
from Chicago.
Chicago. Okay.
And so it's interesting because the product you're actually holding is like the board game he created. It's all dinged up. It's got dirt on it and that sort of thing. And they actually did something super clever. On the back of the game, there's usually an advertisement for for a specific game, right?
Right.
And so instead of putting that on the actual back of the box, they put a sheet in there that they shrunk wrap into place. And so when you open it, the box of the game is actually an old box of this game called Hit the Road, and he's drawn all over it. And so the back of the box is actually a fake advertisement for Hit the Road rather than Hit Z Road, and then he's drawn on it with a marker to make it say Hit Z Road, like zombie,
right,
instead of the, and things like that. And he's drawn mustaches on people that are on the cover and all sorts of things.
Super thematic, super fun thematic game, I think. And I think another part is like the meeples, is like they have a bunch of like colored meeples, and that's kind of like one of your main places. Those are really fun. So, before we wrap up this segment, Matt, how would you rank these in probably like the best game to worst game? Or if you don't want to do that, then maybe probably like the most fun, the least fun, depending on how you want to rank it. I'll let you decide that.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say because they're all so different. They all fall into different categories.
Okay, well then let me rephrase it then.
But,
which one do you think most people should play? Like, this is a game from like 1 to 5, like 1 being like, you need to try this out, 5 being, hey, you could probably wait.
Yeah, I think probably if I was going to put these in order, Why First I would actually put as number 1. I think it's the most accessible game on the list, and I've never played that game with somebody that didn't leave with a smile on their face. I think from there, I would go to Palm Trees. Once again, it's super accessible. Anybody can play it. The rules are very simple, so it doesn't take a lot to learn. From there, I would go with Hit Z Road. I just think Hit Z Road has a super unique theme, and if you're into zombies, it's definitely one that's very thematic and is a good time. Then I would go Petrichor. Because, I mean, you get to be a cloud. And all these are good games. And then Fog of Love last, simply because it's only 2 players. And so you have to have somebody you know you're going to play it with, whereas all the other games have a variance in player count. So once again, they're easier to get to the table.
Where's Why First in there? You said
Why First is 1.
Oh, Why First is 1, okay.
Yeah, and then Palm Trees.
Then Hit Z Road.
Hit Z Road, Petrichor, Fog of Love.
All right. Well, that concludes the end of our show. I want to thank Matt for coming on the show and filling in for Shaner for this week. Do you want to shout out where people can find you on the internet or whatever?
Yeah, sure. I'm the NeoprenePlayMatt with 2 T's on YouTube, and that's pretty much wherever you can find me. Otherwise, I go as Matt Pioch on pretty much every other forum. That's Pioch. So feel free to find me out in the interwebs.
I think there's only one way we can end out this show. Well, there's 2 ways. I'll let you choose, Matt. So I think there's Necronomnoms and then Why First. So how would you like to end out this show?
Why First?
Why first, you know? All right, good night, everyone.